All right, welcome to another episode of Fit Chicks Radio. I am your host Alice, and I'm coming to you from Sydney today. So I'm trying to get some actual in-flesh interviews over here while I'm on the road for the John Meadows and Paul Carter training camp. Now, what we're kind of going to cover in today's episode is mainly IIFYM. It's a hot topic that's been going around probably really the last year. It's really picked up the last couple of years in Australia. We're going to go over, pros, cons, top questions that kind of I get asked and my guests that I have on the show as well. Now, pretty much, I'm going to intro to some of the professionals we've got here with me today. I've roped in some of the guys from across Sydney. These are three guys that I've kind of actually, got to know through social media, which is sounds a bit creepy, but that's kind of how everyone kind of gets to know each other in the fitness industry these days. So I will introduce everyone. They're not your typical kind of bro dieters, and that's kind of why we've got them here today. And I want to kind of start with the guys, even just introing them, then asking them kind of how they got into IIFYM and their little backgrounds into that. So I'm just going to begin by giving you a brief rundown. So first I've got Adam Cooke here from Physique Aspiration is where you can follow him on Facebook. And Adam, I actually got to know last year. We were kind of just bantering on Instagram and then kind of chatting about coaching. And Adam actually helped me prep for the World Champs in IFBB last year. And yeah, so hello, Adam. Thank you for coming in.
My pleasure. Hello, everyone.
Hello. So how did you kind of actually, were you a bro dieter that got into IIFYM?
About as bro-y as it gets. I'm trying to think what I used to. I was told a while ago that, for instance, things like you can't put on fat from protein and stuff like that. And yeah, it was pretty.
So you just keep eating protein all day and you'd be sweet.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, there was no real regard to counting macronutrients or calories or anything. It was kind of just, go with the chicken and make sure you steam it and you'd be good.
You'd be sweet. So I guess what kind of, for people that don't know of you or haven't followed you before, what would you say you're kind of most well known for? You're obviously an EHP athlete as well, and you're a coach as well as an athlete. I mean, like, what shows do you compete in? What sort of feds are you involved in? Coaching methodologies?
So I've done WNBF in Australia, and the last show I did was probably a bit too long ago now. It was maybe a year and a half ago down in Adelaide, which was the Asia Pacific Championships, and came up against some pretty good guys down there. There was the overall lineup I won my middleweight division. In the overall, I came up against Kwame Dua, who's a Muscle Mania pro now. He came third to Ulysses and Sung Lei recently. So
pretty tough lineup.
No, not Sung Lei, sorry. Chul Soon, that's the one. Sung Lei's an Aussie guy. But anyway, so that was really good. Did pretty decently against them. Was pretty close with Joel, which was pretty unreal and pretty mind blowing. So that was the last show I've done. And since then, a couple of the natural federations in Australia they're not going as well as I would hope.
It's kind of dissipated in the men's a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to do.
Yeah, I think that's a tough line, especially with you natty guys. Like, you're obviously all natty guys here, like, knowing where to go. Like, it's a bit different for chicks. IFBB Bikini, like, your natty girls are in there. But then compete. You guys don't really have, it's a really big break then between, like, physique, fitness model, men's. I get so confused. Like, there's so many different feds,
muscle
there's different
model,
looks, muscle model. Like, it's like, what are the judges looking for? I mean, that must be same with Nick. He's obviously our next guest in the same boat with that. But then obviously you do more bodybuilding classes.
Yeah, it's clearer cut most of the time.
You train legs, so not that Nick does.
I've seen Cheadle's legs.
He can lift.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to pull my shorts up next to him.
But you want to show them off. You just want to show off your glutes, so.
Not at this time.
So yeah, I mean, in terms of though, like, your coaching side of things, I mean, I know that that's not your full-time job. You actually have another job on the side, but you do online coaching. What would you say is kind of like your base methodology behind that in terms of more diet?
Well, I guess it depends. If you look at my Instagram page,
it's full of hot cross buns and Pop Tarts, and we'll be talking about that later.
Yeah. So it's easy to look at that and think that that's kind of what I preach, just eating junk and it doesn't really matter where your nutrients come from. But I don't think anyone would really argue that you're best off having a diet that's mostly whole, minimally processed foods and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I preach. Obviously, I'm not phased if a little of your intake comes from your typical junk foods.
But YOLO foods.
Yeah, obviously, as you get further into a prep or something, they're not going to be the greatest choices because eating a block of, well, you're not going to be able to eat a block of chocolate, but
just
eating
blow out your daily calories.
Chunk of chocolate's not really going to do much for your nutrient intake, and you're not going to feel real full after it. So
you got to do Povo macros, and then you got to get creative. And
you just got to be smart with it, I guess.
Yeah, and we're going to bring up some of the guys' tips here for Povo macros, like what do you do when your carbs are getting a little bit low. So we're going to run into those topics a little bit later on. So thank you, Adam, and we're going to obviously come back to Adam in a bit anyway while I intro the guys. I will go on to Nick now because we have just spoken a little bit about Nick. Nick Cheadle Fitness is his website. Obviously got pretty big Instagram, social media following, and Nick is pretty well known for IIFYM. Mainly specifically, that's kind of how I found Nick through, I think, like at the time, I was getting coached by Lane and Nick. Are you still working with Lane at the moment?
Yep.
Yeah. So welcome Nick to the show. And Nick, same sort of thing. So what kind of pushed you? Were you a bro dieter? I didn't actually know your full story of how you kind of broke into the IFYM. Like, were you studying nutrition? Like, what was kind of your path in?
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I was pretty bro when I first started out. I did the whole fasted cardio, avoid carbs like the plague thing.
After 6 p.m. like
a lot of white fish and broccoli for dinner.
Yeah.
Go to bed sort of cradling my empty stomach and sort of
crying.
Sleep. I just sort of got to a point where I thought this there surely has to be an easier way.
Yeah.
I was sick of being hungry and sick of pretty much ruining my progress every couple of weeks when I would inevitably go on an uncontrollable binge.
Yeah, so you went through that real cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd avoid
so it's not just girls, it's boys as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'd go through periods of time where I'd be absolutely on point in regards to my diet for 3 or 4 weeks, and then it would all come crashing down.
Yeah.
And then I just looked like a fat watery mess for a couple of days while I had to try and clean it all up. And I went through that sort of horrible eating a lot of food or overeating, and then sort of starvation to try and even back out. It was just a horrible
So you were like, I'll drop my cows because I've gone over, and then I'll do extra
absolutely.
cardio, and I'll do this. And
yeah, for sure.
See, it's not just the chicks, it's very, very common. Like, how did you kind of pull yourself out of that, I guess, and how long did it go for?
It took me a little while to sort of repair the relationship I had with food. I think one of the biggest things for me was actually going through an actual improvement season.
Mm-hmm.
So spending some time eating more food, just sort of come to terms that I was going to gain a little bit of weight. Even though it may have not necessarily been long-term weight, and just sort of relaxing a little bit.
Yeah.
And from there, I've sort of been able to repair that relationship with food and get myself back into a much better headspace.
Yeah.
And obviously at the same time as I was eating a lot more food, I removed the restrictions that I placed upon myself previously, and became a little more flexible and had more variety. So I didn't really ever get back to that point where I sort of had these
you feel restricted.
Yeah. Exactly.
Did you feel like in that time, like you said, an improvement season, which can mean a lot of different things for different people, did you find in that time like you tended to focus then to get away from that kind of aesthetics and that pressure on yourself with body fat? Like, did you focus more on your lifting? Did your training change? Like, was that kind of somewhere that helped with it, or what's kind of pulled you out of it?
Yeah, I guess so. I prefer to refer to it as an improvement season rather than a bulking season, just because I think most people generally perceive the term bulking as exactly. It's just the seafood diet.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I still had a hard time sort of coming to terms with the fact that my clothes weren't fitting as I had become accustomed to. But for me, once I sort of got through that initial weight gain, I just sort of kept thinking about the long-term goal and the sort of greater purpose and what that was going to help me do in the long run.
Yeah.
No one likes gaining weight and looking not their best.
Of course,
but ultimately, if you think about the long-term benefits of doing that, maybe next time that you get lean, you're going to look a little bit better. That's definitely the plan.
Yeah, I mean, did it like come into mind like anything in terms of how did you find your overall sort of moods and energy? Like, were you up and down when you were a real yo-yo sort of binge eater and that vicious cycle? Were your moods and energy levels all over the shop? And
more often than not, my energy levels were in the toilet.
Yeah.
Because I would eat next to nothing. I think about what I was eating back then. It was probably sub 1,500 calories.
Oh, that's like
days.
less than a bikini competitor.
Well, it's pretty much what I ate for breakfast.
Yeah. So
So
how long?
I had no energy, and then when I started eating more, it was like someone had introduced me to training. All of a sudden, I could actually lift some weight. And it was all of a sudden it was. This is why I enjoy doing this, not really because I like looking. The way I get to look when I'm lean is awesome. That's a great byproduct, but the actual process of getting there is much more enjoyable.
When you find a better way to get there, it's like you're going to be able to do this with longevity. Before you're probably like going, how the hell am I going to maintain this for the rest of my life if I want to look like
I used to read those ridiculous interviews on Simply Shredded. None of these guys seriously stick with salmon and broccoli. But it's crap. They don't.
And it's like a 2,500 off season and like a 1,500 cow diet.
Yeah, exactly. And these guys are rocking like 110 kilos.
No, I mean, I obviously didn't know that about you and your background, so it's really interesting and good hearing a male perspective on that, because I have so many females that contact me about that issue, because I obviously went through it myself as well. I don't know, Adam, have you ever been in that cycle when you're on your real broy diets? Is it not just...
No. I'm pretty lucky in that I have a pretty decent metabolism, and
you didn't diet that low. What's going to be the lowest you've gone, like macro-wise?
Well, back when I was bro, I wouldn't even be able to tell you. It would have been down around the 2,000, 1,800. But my last prep where I am, of steamed chicken. Yeah. I think I was eating like 300 grams cooked a meal back then.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this last prep, I think the lowest I went when I was really digging was like 2,600 calories.
Oh.
So that was...
They like my off-season macros.
Yeah, I think that was like 280 grams of carbs and a little lower on fat. I think I was like 40, 45 grams of fat. But that was,
and you barely did...
What do you even eat with that little fat?
White ice cream, Sultana brand. The choices are endless. But yeah, that was
cereal.
That was kind of the
whey protein cereal.
The lowest I went. And then I'm one of those guys that tends to really struggle to eat. In my off season, as opposed to diet. Like I would rather diet than I would try and put on size. So.
Which doesn't generally happen for females as much as guys.
I'm lucky in one respect. So
although a lot of girls I know when I first start them struggle. You push them above, like they've been sitting on 1,200 calories for ages. 1,500 seems like a lot to them. And you've got to just slowly keep pushing. So I guess coming back to Nick, like in terms of like then your education to kind of push you out of that, was it more working with other coaches and mentors, or did you go and kind of do some more training in nutrition or those sort of side of things?
I did a few, I guess, courses, but nothing. There's no real flexible dieting course.
The courses, I mean, like in Australia, I went through uni and did dietetics, and I think I learned more about, not so much about the science, but more like how to apply it to clients and people and practical through like mentors, coaches, other people. Like, do you feel the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I worked with a couple of coaches before I landed on Lane. I think I actually had a chat with Evan at one point in time as well. It was a lot of, I guess, a lot of research on my own part, a lot of reading, a lot of following the right people like Lane and Alan.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Just following those guys that sort of put out the right sort of stuff.
With evidence.
Exactly. And just sort of sifting through all the BS. And sort of figuring out sort of what was going to be the right sort of stuff to follow. And then from there, I've trialed and run a lot of different things, and when I sort of gave this a whirl, it was, well, this really works, and why would you do it any other way?
So it's just been trial and error on yourself and on clients, or more just mainly with yourself to begin, and then
I
then into
never really
coaching.
throw anything at a client without having done it first myself, but definitely throw it myself and then
give it a crack.
Absolutely.
It's one of the best ways to trial things. Like, I definitely find off season, I'll use myself as like a guinea pig. Maybe not so much for diet, but definitely training protocols, like, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I guess so, like with your competing, like you're similar to Adam, like you haven't done, you did a show last year though, didn't you?
This time literally.
Was it WBFF last year? Yeah, because they're not having the same show. They've got one a bit later, don't they? So what's kind of, are you competing in that show coming up, or have you got anything coming up, or more focusing on other things at the moment?
I would not consider myself to be a competitor.
Yeah.
I compete.
Yeah.
Every so often, but I'm not a competitor.
Yeah.
I think I do it to stay relevant and to show everyone that it's still possible, particularly from a flexible dieting aspect. That was pretty much the only reason I did my last show, was to show people that.
And as a coach as well.
And still get lean.
Yeah.
And that's the main reason I do it, from a coaching perspective.
Yeah.
I would much rather be a coach than a competitor.
Yeah.
There's way too many calories to be eaten.
I know. I went to a show. I was at IFBB a few weeks back in Perth, and I had 5 girls in the show, and I started crying. Yeah. And I was more proud of them than I love competing. I love getting on stage. It's fun. But I was so much more proud of that. And I was like, if I never get on stage again, I'm sweet. Adam teased me. He was like, "You've retired." I'm like,
yeah, well, you're retired.
I'll come back when I'm ready.
It is fun getting up on stage, but smashing cakes on the way more fun.
And it's also hard to, I found the reason that I haven't done shows lately as well is it is very hard to coach people for competitions and be doing your own competition coaching as well at the same time. So it's finding that balance, I guess, if you're trying to coach, if you're trying to compete, if you're trying to do everything, then you've got to be looking at obviously other factors like stress and cortisol and all that's going to come into play, which people don't think IIFYM people care about, but we're probably going to chat a bit more about it today. So thank you, Nick. We'll be coming back to you in a minute. So now my last guest, he's been waiting around for us to get through the intros. So I have Paulo with me here from Athletic IQ. Now, for those of you who don't know what Athletic IQ is, Paulo's a coach there, and give us a bit of a rundown on what that actually is.
How you doing, guys? Basically, Athletic IQ is a coaching company where I put together a bunch of coaches besides myself to coach people in an ethical manner under flexible dieting guidelines using evidence-based protocols.
I love the fact that you said ethical in there.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important to focus on that side of it as well. I mean, the other thing I really wanted to put forward there was that we recognise the difference between competitors and non-competitors as well.
That's good.
We draw that line and we focus on the mindset aspect of it for non-competitors,
like lifestyle
type, clients, as opposed to the people who comp with us, our athletes, and we treat them a little bit differently in that the protocols that we put out for them are a little bit more rigid, and for them, and I'm going to say this in that way, we recognise that there's two sides of the scale.
Yeah.
You've got someone who's coming from a rigid background and needs a bit of flexibility, and then someone who comes from a very loose background and needs some rigidness.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
So
People might get confused a bit by what Paulo just said there. So do you mean in terms of if we just kind of lay this out layman's terms, if you're giving someone say a diet plan and they've had no structured diet before, you may actually write them a bit of a rough meal plan, say in that situation with macros, but just to kind of kickstart them. Whereas someone
we'd give them some assistance, either by phone or by email, and we'd give them the guidelines necessary to be able to set I won't say a structured meal plan per se, but a structure so that they can
together.
Follow. Yeah, if they come from a very loose background. You see. So ultimately, what you've got to recognise is that flexible dieting is still flexible. However, it depends on which side of the scale you come from. If you're the typical bro diet bodybuilder, which I've come from that background, flexible dieting's awesome because you can loosen up.
Yeah.
And you learn you can get the better results with an easier protocol. But on the other side of the scale, you've got people who need that structure because they were too flexible.
Yeah.
And they've just got to rein it in a little bit.
They're like, whatever. Pop-Tarts all day.
So, for those people, for example, it might be a case of educating them on the difference between whole foods and focusing a little bit on what Adam was saying, focusing more on that, saying that, a certain percentage of your food can be junk food or whatever you want to allocate it to.
Yeah.
But the other percentage has to be still from whole foods and stuff that addresses the daily nutrient intake required.
And people don't think that IIFYM is anything about that, so that's a big one we're going to touch on and get everyone's input.
I think so, yeah. I think that's important to cover off. Considering, like, I think if we all talk about our backgrounds, I competed back in 2011.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about, what's your, I know you were a bodybuilder back in the day. What was your fed and what was your kind of big comps that you used to do then?
Well, I played around in the A and B back in 2011.
What category did you do?
I came third in two separate comps, third and fourth. I did the typical bro diet thing, it's pretty much like Adam's, except I was on a really low calorie intake. What's interesting about my journey was that I actually competed with my wife.
Yeah.
And we both suffered the rebound effect.
Yeah.
Of the low calorie diet. I think I finished my diet with, I think it was 9 cardio or 10 list cardio sessions.
Oh, for how long?
For about 4 weeks.
No, like how long were the sessions?
Oh, an hour.
Oh,
yeah,
yuck.
An hour each. And then approximately 1,100 to 1,200 calories a day. I remember doing a set of deadlifts and getting so lightheaded that I actually thought that I woke up next to the barbell.
Wow.
So that, for me, was a bit of an eye-opener. And then what made it worse and what cemented it was that my wife had rebounded post-comp. She was on a lower calorie diet.
Yeah, if you're on 1,100, what was she on, like 700?
Pretty sure she was on about 7 or 8.
Oh.
Where she struggled was that post-comp, because she was so rigid with what she was eating, being chicken and broccoli and all that sort of stuff. Post-comp, she ended up basically never wanting to eat broccoli again and struggled with some digestive conditions.
Yeah.
After that.
It's very common.
Absolutely. She ended up with PCOS. Is that PCOS?
Yeah,
no, it was actually colitis as well. So she struggled with that and started to have to stick to low FODMAP type foods
like
afterwards.
IBS reaction from it,
Yeah. So and she's still on that journey now. So for us, couple that with the fact that I'm probably the oldest out of the three of us.
How old are we all in this room? Who's the baby here? Go on, Paula. How old are you?
I'm going to take a stab and
go
say
on,
that
have
I
a guess.
Nick might be the baby here.
Yeah, I reckon.
It's either me or Nick.
I'll come out and say my age first. I'm 38.
Go, Adam. You've got a big one this year.
21st. No.
Oh, Christ.
29.
He's 30 this year. How old are you, Nick?
I'm 25.
Oh,
There
you
you
are
go.
younger than me.
So-
Yeah, I'm almost 27. So, yeah, I got a year on you.
There you go. So, in saying that, being aesthetic was not my main goal after that. It was really about getting metabolic health back and all that sort of stuff. And just aging, aging properly with a properly functioning metabolism for both me and my wife.
I mean, you guys have got kids as well. Like, did that obviously play a big factor in wanting to get a healthier lifestyle and show the kids?
We don't actually have children. We've got dogs.
Well, you talk about them like your children.
We always talk about the kids.
You said children to me in a message the other day.
I'm pretty sure I did.
I'm pretty sure you
But
did.
they are our kids.
I think you were asking me about my child, which is my puppy. That's how
right.
we got to...
Yeah, it was.
Yes, we were. We were talking about children.
About Buffy, right?
About my dog that
Right.
disappeared, yes.
Okay.
She's alive.
So that's good. So in our case...
Dogs are like children.
They very much are. So for us, it's basically about, as I said, just aging properly and having properly functioning metabolism. And obviously, in terms of aesthetics, you still do care about
Of course,
about your presentation. I might not want to drop down to a 6% body fat or a 4% body fat down the track, but it helps to know that if I needed to diet down,
you know how to do it
I
healthy.
know how to do it and I can.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm going to walk around fat for the rest of my life. It's just what I like to say to people is that you want to be comfortable in the skin that you're walking around in.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially for females. Like,
Mhm.
yeah. Excellent.
So-
All right. Now, I know, sorry, I'm cutting you off a little bit there, but I
No,
want
that's
to kind of get into the questions a little bit more. So basically, I guess like we've kind of covered how you guys kind of converted from kind of your bro style dieting and getting into IIFYM. I just want to kind of like roll through some names of basically who you guys think are the biggest players in terms of like educating you, people that you follow, because people want to know who to follow, who to read about. I mean, like for me, I've obviously been on a camp this week with John Meadows, which he's someone that I follow, but then I've also worked with Lane Norton, and they are two like pretty different kettles of fish, but I'm a big believer in pulling bits of information from different people and then trialing and erroring things. Like, I mean, throw some names at me. Who do you guys like?
Lane and Alan for me.
Lane and Alan, yeah. You going to Alan's seminar? Alan's here in Sydney in what?
Yeah.
Next week?
Is it? I hope not.
No, it's May. Yeah, sorry.
I also big fan of Martin Birkin for me personally.
I haven't heard of him. Where's he from?
He was one of the intermittent fasting founders.
Okay,
I think he did Lean Gains.
Yeah.
And he just has a lot of science-based stuff on his website.
Yeah, I've read a bit from Lean Gains. I didn't know it was him.
Yeah, so he was another one for me.
Yeah. Right, you, Adam. You're a big nerd, so yeah.
Yes, at times I go through stages. Definitely Alan. Lane I've listened to a lot. Lyle to a decent extent too.
Who's Lyle for people that don't know?
Lyle McDonald.
There we go. Yeah.
Many men. It depends what day you get him on. I guess, but, not that I know him personally.
he's his bestie. Yeah.
Yeah, but Eric Helms, big Eric Helms fanboy. He's really entertaining, really smart. He's just one of those guys that I find I click with what he's saying, and it really rings true with me. He's got a real good way of explaining things. So Alberto Nunez, because he just gets
shredded. His conditioning is next level.
Yes.
What was his DEXA scan? What was it when he did it?
Well,
it was 6%.
Yeah, it was like
6 on a DEXA,
which would be an enormous wake-up call for
people that are like, I'm 1% body fat.
Yeah. Like
anyone that's ever done like a biosig.
It's like a pineapple wrapped in glide wrap or something.
He is very nice, yeah. And he's flexible dieter. I mean, I've watched some of his YouTube videos.
Yeah, well, he's Mr. Pop-Tart.
Oh, yeah. And he got me hooked on Aztec ice cream because I just went to the States and that stuff's like 50 calories per tub.
So I think it's about 600 grams of carbs,
exactly. He's like Adam. He's got metabolism.
I'll give you the long drawn-out answer for my one. Basically, what I do is I like to put them into pockets.
Yeah.
So for training, I would say Mike Zordos.
Yeah, for sure.
Dennis Grow.
Yeah.
The boys from De Novo are really good when it comes to volume and all that sort of stuff. John Meadows as well, actually, for training. And then for nutrition, I would say Lane, Alan, Lyle, I like some of his stuff as well. And I like comparing the different views when you have three different coaches that follow evidence-based protocols and then they have their own opinions on it. I would say that those three, in terms of nutrition, are the big key players, and obviously Eric Helms as well, and 3DMJ boys, they're pretty good.
Yeah, Adam's got the T-shirt on, so he's repping him tonight. He's been paid to be here.
I wish. I'm just a fanboy.
Just the little creep. Yeah. I guess, like, obviously it's a female-targeted podcast, so you guys all work with females, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Poor Adam had to deal with me dieting last year, so I don't think I was too bad. But basically, what do you guys find are some of like the biggest common problems you get with females, mainly dieting side of things? Like whether it be dieting or you're trying to get them to increase their calories, what are the big things in terms of, doesn't have like mindset, or is it like just simply getting cows in or getting them to understand it? Like Nick, what do you reckon some of your ones are?
Majority of my clients are female.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's the food thing that draws them to me or whatever, but it just
your pictures are all colourful and girls are like drawn in by those fun foods.
I think for me, a lot of them do struggle somewhat with sort of increasing their intake. They're sort of scared about the whole more food thing.
Yeah.
Most will typically equate more food with more weight.
Yeah.
What I've also seen is that the girls with a reasonable history of low-calorie dieting will struggle to diet in the future without any reasonable period of time eating sort of maintenance and above.
When you actually coach them, you can't get their cows up with them dropping body fat.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen success getting cows up, but
yeah.
If they aren't sort of staying up there for a reasonable amount of time, then they definitely struggle to get back down.
And I mean, like, open question here, guys. Like, obviously, I mean, I've researched a lot about this as well, that there's a lot of research that every time you diet, it's going to be harder to diet the next time. And that's why people like, don't do shows as frequently. Don't try to smash out 6 shows in 2 years, or like I used to do back-to-back shows, and every time it would get harder and I didn't know what was going on. Because, like, obviously, why is that? I mean, leave this one open to you guys.
So metabolic adaptation is a key factor in that, obviously. And, there's varying studies to show the degree of how much that affects each individual. In my experience, there's also debate in the reverse dieting side of it, right? So in my experience, I would say that adaptation varies from somewhere in between 10 to maybe, on the higher end of the scale, maybe 40-30% drop on what their intake is, which is high.
Yeah.
And the way I figure it is that basically the more aggressive you diet in, the more it affects you later on down the track. And obviously there's evidence to show that too.
Do you think that, like, aggressive in terms of how fast you drop or the length of prep? Because I find it's like, obviously if you've done like a 12-week prep, haven't been super aggressive at the start, but then you like smash and drop the cows a bit for the last 4 weeks compared to going, gradual reductions over that course of that 12 weeks.
I'm going to say that that's probably a little bit more individual.
Yeah.
However, in saying that, if you start off aggressively, I think that's when you run into
trouble. You're going to hit those plateaus.
Yeah. So if you, from what I've seen people who have started off aggressively and then 12 weeks out and doing, 7 cardio sessions, 1,100 calories, and that
Where do
sort
they
of thing.
go?
Yeah, and they've got nowhere to go. Reversing out of that, finishing your comp at 700 calories, it's almost impossible to say, oh yeah, hey, I'm going to have a really nice sweet reverse from this, because who reverses out of 700 calories?
That long period of prep.
Yeah, and by that stage, you just want you're starving, quite literally. So you've just got to eat.
I mean, I found though,
the
like,
repercussions.
I mean, if you're going to go, like, I mean, I've done it before. I've had to kind of go a bit more aggressive with people, and you're not always comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But I found if it's for a short period of time, I think that some people they use the term metabolic damage like to the extreme, and they go a bit over the top. It's like you've been aggressive for, say, like 3 weeks. Or like 2 weeks where you've been having to add in like a couple of extra HIIT sessions, and then they're like, oh my God, I've got metabolic damage.
That's why I use the term metabolic adaptation.
Yeah.
Because I think metabolic damage,
it's a buzzword.
It has been abused.
I
hate it. I feel sorry for Lane, because he got like, everyone was like, you were the one that like made it huge. Poor guy.
Lane, Lane sort of, Lane coined the term to a degree. Obviously, that wasn't his intent. It was never his intent to market it for his business or anything like that. He wanted to flag the issue. And to be fair, there is an issue.
Yeah, of course.
However, I also think that a lot of people self-interpreted that. Yeah. And as you said, took it to an extreme, to the point where they think, I've done 4 weeks worth of... done 4 weeks of 7 days cardio.
Stuffed.
Yeah, I'm gone. So
yeah,
I've seen low numbers and I've seen high numbers, and I have to say that while we're talking about evidence-based topics here, I have to say that the high numbers are usually outliers.
Yeah.
People who can diet down like Adam and Nick, mate, they're a rare find,
Yeah. They're the ones that probably should be competing. Yeah.
I prepped Robbie Frame, and
Robbie had a lot of cows, didn't he? Yeah.
We started him off at 600 carbs a day.
But then it's interesting because Robbie used to be a bro dieter and was on like no cows for his first show. So it's interesting that his metabolism was able to, again, I don't think he was in a deficit for a long enough period of time for it to be. Robbie was meant to be here tonight, by the way, but he's stuck.
Robbie actually took two years off competing.
Yeah.
Before he competed again. So, and he had a very solid off season prior to our comp. So I have to, and actually I'm going to credit him. Evan Godby from Muscle Academy took care of Robbie's off season prior to us starting with us. So Evan got him to 600 carbs, the kid put on some decent muscle in that off season.
I think I had a client that went to you, and she dieted with me, and she came to you, and you're like, oh, you're on decent calories for a chick.
There you go. There you go. I think we've all
kind of
like
passed
that.
clients around. Yeah, that's
And,
what you hope. Yeah.
I guess ultimately, like the way I see it is that basically what people should pick up from that is two things. Firstly, you should always ask yourself, is there a better way to do things?
Yeah.
And then secondly, it's realizing that it's a cycle. It's not just an immediate fix. So it's not just about the diet to comp, or it's not just about the diet to get the result. It's about the work that you put in prior to that as well, and the setting up of all that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we need to sort of like
work on people's,
reinforce on
like Nick said, work on people's improvement seasons rather than like bulk seasons or off seasons,
I like that too,
and build the calories up in an improvement season, build the training up. That's where you're going to make your gains, especially as a natural competitor. You can't, people bang on about it all the time, lean gains. Like, who else hates that term? Like, like fucking buzzword with, we can stick that in with metabolic damage, lean gains. Like what the hell is lean gains? Like, I don't get it. In terms of a natural competitor, it is very, very hard to put on much muscle if you're in a diet, in a deficit. Like, if any, I've looked at a few studies and they reckon that if you're a beginner, it is possible to put on just because of that, the actual muscle stimulation. They haven't had that before.
If you've had a break from training or something like that you're coming back from.
Lyle McDonald wrote a good article on genetic muscular potential.
Okay, yeah.
Which is a great read. And
we'll link that one into this.
So many dreams.
Your lean gains are gone. So what was kind of the summary of it? Yeah.
I think from memory, in your first year of training, the theory was sort of maybe 3 to 4 kilos of muscle mass.
You can't lose 2% and put on 2 kilos in a week. Sorry.
Yeah. Despite what some coaches point
yeah.
out. And then it's just diminishing returns from there.
Yeah.
So by the time you get to sort of 3, 4, 5 years training, if you can put a kilo of muscle on in a year,
we're talking guys
hats
here.
off. Yeah. This is guys. So
girls it's even less.
Yeah. It's I still find it amusing when I get female clients telling me that they find it really easy to put on muscle. They just struggle to diet down.
Yeah, I get it all the time. Or ones that have just told them that they've just had their body fat done and they've put on another 2 kilos of mass in the last month, and I'm like, what are you taking, and why don't we know about it? What have you been eating? So I mean, I guess like that's a really interesting topic, is probably like explaining to females in particular that results don't come that fast. I have a lot of girls that come to me, and I'm sure you guys as well, and they want to do their first bikini show, and they've never really lifted a weight before, and they want to do one in 12 weeks' time. And they've got like, maybe they're like skinny fat. They're like 25% and like 55 kilos.
That's
like
the thing. Even bikini is still an extension of bodybuilding.
Yes.
If you spent no time building your body, then you probably shouldn't really be contemplating competing.
No.
You need a good foundation before you start.
People don't understand that.
Yeah, before you start looking at, cutting the fat, you've got to look at what's under the quilt.
Sometimes they just hope that it's going to magically appear, and I think that's, coaches have to be realistic with girls, because a lot of girls get sucked into these coaches who just want money, and they go, yeah, I'll prep you. They get on stage and they look malnourished because there's no muscle there. They look depleted. It's just like skin and bone. And then these girls' metabolisms probably, again, aren't in a fantastic position. They've probably, if anything, lost muscle a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the last sort of layer or section of fat you lose is the bit that's clinging to your skin, I think. Is that correct? So as you lose more fat, your skin is getting heavier, I guess, and you look sloppier. Even though,
yeah. So your adipose and your visceral fats,
So it's, you need to build before you go looking at doing a show.
Yeah, so bottom line, to the general public, I suppose, is or first-time competitors and female competitors that are looking at competing down the track, is that two things. Look at it from a cycle perspective, that you have to have a decent foundation before you go into the cut.
Yeah.
So you've got to be prepared to do the off-season work, eat the calories necessary to do that.
Lift heavy.
Push
some weights around.
Because you're not going to get big,
Yeah.
Contrary to what you would think.
I mean, that's obviously a big topic. You're trying to tell a girl that wants to get shredded and get up in a bikini, I want you to go eat more, put on a bit of weight, and go and lift some weights. And she's going to go, I feel bulky, I feel fat, I don't want to do this, I'm never going to get lean. What do you guys do in that situation?
The thing is, you can make improvements without gaining a whole bunch of weight.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the term improvement season, it's not about getting as many calories in as possible to give yourself every chance of growing. It's about staying in the smallest surplus possible to allow lean gains, if you like.
We're going to need a new term.
To allow
healthy gains.
To allow you the opportunity to build muscle without turning into a mess.
Because what happens if you put on fat very quickly? Like, there's obviously negative adaptations to gaining fat.
There's probably zero adaptation. That's the problem. Whereas if you spend time increasing your intake slowly, then your body is probably going to respond better to that over time and get used to that.
I'm talking about even like fat cells. You're like multiplication. If you put on fat fast, the cells are there pretty much to stay. Like, it's not like, you got sciencey terms, but your hyperplasia and Paulo's going to do the science words for me. Yeah.
It's not impossible. I haven't found it impossible for girls to eat a lot of food, but there's no way I'd take some of the girls that I have coached to the levels they've gotten to straight off the bat.
No. Yeah. So how long, Nick, like realistically, say you've done a girl and she's done a 12-week prep and her metabolism's, like, her diet, her cow's got pretty low. How long, if she said to you, Nick, I want to do another show, how long do you reckon you'd say to her? Would you go like the length of the dieting time she'd need off times 2 before she started in a deficit again? Have you got kind of like a ballpark, or where you just kind of push her calories to?
I would consider doing another show soon if she could, depending on the situation. If she wanted to do a couple of back-to-back shows simply because she thought maybe she wasn't going to compete ever again, she just wanted to take advantage, then I'd consider that. But yeah, I mean, the longer you can put between shows, the better chance you give yourself of getting into appropriate condition for them.
Yeah.
To support that, or rather, I have had many girls that have competed in the past and not really weighted, and they always end up getting down to what I would consider
low calories.
Disgracefully low calories. Yeah.
And you're not comfortable as a coach doing that either. Like.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, when I'm eating a breakfast that's more calorie dense than a day's worth of eating, it's like... for me, it also gets to that point, like, is it worth
ethics as well.
I mean, do you really... How badly do you want to get to stage if you have to eat 1,000 calories
How much is that plastic trophy really worth to you? And the other thing is, your shows back to back, and say you're not winning, are you going to improve? Are you going to then... Like, for me, and Adam's, like, obviously I keep bugging Adam being like, when the hell are you getting back on stage? And he's like, when I'm going to be better. Which I like that answer. He's like, I'm not getting on stage until... What do you want to grow, Adam? What have you been struggling with?
We won't even bother mentioning calves.
I have bigger calves than Adam.
Yeah, we'll leave it all over knee stuff. Everything. I mean, chest, arms. I'm generally one of the smaller guys on stage, but it's just my conditioning that can keep me
shredded,
hanging with them. Like, you look at Kwame Dua, and he's
103 off.
Oh man, monster. He's huge, but it's. You see photos of me next to him, and he doesn't look at first glance that much better. And it's just my conditioning. That's the only thing that holds me up against some of these guys. So.
But I like the mindset that you're not in a hurry to get back on stage.
It's the training that I love. It's not the competing that I love. Some people love it, but I think it's pretty rare to actually really love the competing, because it is it just takes a toll on your life, and there's other things that have got to take priority, like your family, your work, all that sort of stuff. You're not going to make money from bodybuilding. So and I mean, if you don't enjoy training, you're not going to be competing anyway. So
you just like getting up there in the budgie smugglers. Though,
I do, the leopard print ones.
That's what you miss.
The more people I talk to, the more people come up with more reasons why they don't like competing versus they do like competing. Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind it, and it's the journey and seeing the changes that I like.
It's like unpeeling something, like you're seeing the layers, you're seeing what's underneath. I like that part of it.
Yeah. It's not getting up there and fake tan and then spending a week scrubbing it off. And it's,
absolutely. It's good answer to the same question. The answer's always when I'm ready.
Yeah, it's a side effect of
people are always going to ask it. Yeah. They always want to know, when's your next show? When's your next show?
Yeah, we'll see. Sometime before 2050, I guess.
before.
I don't know. I really don't know.
But, I mean, especially for girls, that's such an important thing to see. Like, yeah, just because you do bikini, like, you don't have to put on a massive amount of muscle sometimes. It's more about looking after your health, would you say, guys, for girls? It's a big thing.
There's just one point that I really want to drive through here for the whole girls thing as well.
Yeah.
It's the idea that people, that females in particular, guys can do this quite easily, but it's to think with logic rather than emotion.
Yeah.
And it's reinforcing that over and over and over again. Because what happens is, inevitably with a guy, you can basically say,